My presentation today starts with 5 words, which 52 years ago have casted the world in fear and hope, which are still a symbol of the unexpected that calls for urgent action, which for 3 men and their family meant 1 week struggle for life or death. These 5 words are, Houston, we have a problem. Imagine the year is 1970, by the way, the year when I was born. Precisely, it is 11 of April, and the clock in Houston shows 13:13. Precisely in this moment in time, the American space agency NASA shoots the spaceship Apollo 13 to the moon. The experts plan to land on the moon in 4 days. On the 3rd day, April the 13th, there is a loud crash, and the 3 astronauts see how white powder flows into the space. This is their oxygen. 2 from their 3 oxygen tanks have just exploded, and their entire oxygen flows into the space. The Houston Control Center is in panic. No one has ever planned with such a disaster. The families of the 3 astronauts are completely horrified. How many of you have seen the film Apollo 13? Give me a hands up. Yeah, not so many, young audience. If this here is the Earth, and up there is the moon, on the 3rd day, April the 13th, when the explosion happens, they're very close to the moon, where is the cross. If they continue flying according to the plan, they have energy until somewhere between the Earth and the moon, when the line stops, but not enough to reach the gravity of the Earth, and so to be pulled on the Earth's surface. It is clear now the mission landing on the moon has failed. All already planned geological or other lunar research have been blown away by this explosion. Now, the lives of the astronauts are at stake. Now it is a matter of life or death. In the Houston Control Center, there is 1 man in charge, the 37-year-old Gene Kranz. He, with his short and flat haircut, he looks you always into the eyes and acts tough but competent. Gene grasps immediately that in order to save the lives of the astronauts, he has to win 1 fight, the fight for energy. Energy in the space is everything. You need energy in order to move the spaceship, in order to navigate it, but also to communicate with the Earth. Now, every energy unit, every single amp, has a life meaning. Now, they need a miracle. What does Gene Kranz do in this historical moment? He gathers his entire Houston team in 1 room. The room boils from anxiety and nervousness. The heads are challenged, the ideas rush around, the hearts are full with care, fear, and hope. Gene listens each and every one very carefully. At one point, he calls for silence. Then he pulls all these people spread around the space together. Everyone, the 3 astronauts in the space, the Houston Control Center, scientists, engineers, hundreds of people. Gene says, we haven't lost a man in space until now, and as long as I'm responsible, no one stays there. Failure is not an option. He succeeds to pull all these people spread around the space through a magical gravity force in 1 strong virtual team. 1 team aligned towards 1 goal, to save the lives of the astronauts. These are 7 days filled with incredible character strength, genius feats of engineering. Among others, they built CO2 converter into the spaceship, but above all, an extraterrestrial triumph of leadership. On the 17th of April, the land capsule of Apollo 13 lands, or rather splashes, in the Pacific, and the 3 astronauts are rescued. This is a miracle. This is virtual power. This is a virtual power team. Now, why I'm telling you this story? How many of you have worked on a project where something unexpected happens? Give me a hands up. Okay. Much more than Apollo 13 story. So how often is the go-live date brought forward, or the budget reduced, and you still have to deliver with less energy? Or how often the team members in different locations, home office, different countries, Sometimes they lose motivation, and that deteriorates the team performance. So I personally heard the statement, Houston, we have a problem, more than once in my career. Luckily, it was never life and death situation, but for the project, it was quite critical. And now, COVID came, made us all remote and virtual, lockdown, and we responded quite well with good, well-honed digital skills. But the longer this period expands, the more we need to set goals remotely, we need to resolve conflicts remotely, we need to establish a structured communication in remote and now hybrid teams and maintain the winning team spirit. And for this, we need a system. And this is what I will share with you today, a system to build powerful virtual and hybrid teams, and also to motivate the remote team members, the home office workers. Now, I was 20 years IT manager, so like many of you, or being on the client side, deploying SAP and so on. And the last 8 years, I decided to dedicate myself to the topic of virtual power teams, as Christo mentioned. And what keeps me going now, 8th, 9th year, is that the system works. For example, one 2-year project involving 20 countries in Europe. We delivered 3 months early and we saved 250,000 euro. That was establishing global shared services, and I'll share in the end of the presentation. On another one, it was 1 billion euro project involving Alibaba and e-commerce. We delivered on time in a very dispersed team, had 80 million profitability. Now, 9 years work with many different clients, some of them big. I live in Germany, in Hamburg, like BASF and Lufthansa and so on. But some of them, like many of you, how many of you come from mid-size SME, small and medium enterprises? Although it's a matter of definition, yes, okay. And probably, how many are from big multinationals? Okay, and the rest must be scaling startups. So here you have all range. You have the big multinationals, you have medial enterprises where we also connect not just the internal teams and internal employees, but also their clients and sometimes partners and strategic suppliers, and also scaling startups. And also, if you take there some NGOs like United Nations, quite a big non-profit organization, where people are not on salary, they don't have career or bonus scheme, same principles apply. Now, from all these experiences as a manager of large teams and also coaching now some global teams, I can tell that the virtual team is like the atom, where you have a nucleus and then you have various particles flying around. In a virtual team, we aim to retain the gravity despite the distance. The gravity between the individual team members, which are the particles in this model, towards the nucleus. But the nucleus is not the manager, it's not the company owner, it's not the project manager. The nucleus is the team purpose and goal. So you will see we put a lot of emphasis to put the goal bottom up in this method. And I'll explain how we do it. Now, the virtual power teams comprises the 10 big rocks. And these are 10 success factors for retaining the gravity in a virtual team and unleashing the team power. And these 10 success factors, 10 is a big number, they're broken down in 3 main parts. If you imagine your team, by the way, how many of you work in virtual teams? At least one team member is, now we have quite close, probably around 85%. If you imagine your team as a human being, the first part, the logical part, is the head. This is the logical, the cognitive part. And here come the first 3 big rocks, namely, big rock number 1, personality in focus. Some managers say, I don't see the people, why should I bother what are they as individuals? From my perspective, big mistake. So I will give you a couple of formats where even people, even if they don't have a chance to meet face-to-face, they can go deep and connect on a human level, not just expert to expert, brilliant machine learning or data scientist, human level. That helps to retain the gravity. Second big rock, strengths matrix. In the poorly led virtual teams, people feel anonymous. They feel isolated, they feel not understood. Here we will find out the natural strengths and talents of the people. And I'll share with you a script, they coach each other. And when we put all the strengths in a strength matrix, a new feeling emerges. Like everyone, instead of feeling anonymous and isolated, he or she feels like a hero, because every one of us brings a special skills and strengths and talents to the table. And when people see all the strengths on a strength matrix, a new feeling emerges. With this bouquet of strengths, with this mix of talents, we could achieve any goal that we set to ourselves, any nucleus. So, simple steps you will see, but they help each one of them to strengthen the gravity and the team spirit, the sense of belonging. Big rock number 3 is interdependent goals. So here is the place where we define the nucleus of the atom in a special 3-step process. So in the first part, the head, we are aiming for clarity. Who is a member of the team as a human being, and what is the goal of the team, the nucleus of the atom? The second part is the body and muscles. This is the dynamic part. And big rock number 4 is forums and agenda. What online meetings do you need? What forums, asynchronous and synchronous forums you need in order to keep the communication. Then knowledge management, and we link it to the strengths. You know, the strengths that we identified in the strength matrix, they become the knowledge champions and custodians in this particular, for the team, relevant areas. And then big rock number 6 is regular feedback. Sometimes scarce in local team and even more in virtual teams. And here we are aiming in this part, the body, for structured communication. Not like in poorly led teams, sometimes the manager calls a meeting, if there is a problem, starts some finger pointing, or he speaks most of the time. No, we are aiming for structured communication where everyone has a slot to contribute and to shine. And the last part, the third, my favorite, is the heart. So here we're talking about recognition. Do you know, by the way, what's number 1 reason for people leaving companies? Software development, anyone? It's not salary, although here is a big driver. Salary is number 2. Number 1, not enough recognition by the line manager. So people leave managers and bosses, not companies. Big rock number 8, diversity. If you have a multiple dimensions, multicultural teams, or different ages, age diversity, how to establish the optimal team culture. Number 9, winning spirit. Tell you a story in the end. And number 10, which is like overarching, is next generation leaders. So how to involve the millennials and digital natives in order to, they contribute and shine in the team. Now, as Christo mentioned, the book that I've written, I'm a mathematician, then IT manager, so process and numbers guy. Written a book, for my big surprise, it was translated in 6 languages, including Bulgarian, Kipi bez granici, and then it was Amazon top 3, just for a week, but I keep this screenshot like dear to my heart. Now, that was a bit of a spoiler. This 81 is, the question to you would have been, how many are the virtual teams globally? So it's a study from Forrester Research, before COVID, 4 years old, and they found out that there are 81%. And do you know how many of them are in more than one time zone, quite dispersed? What's the percentage? 70? 40, said someone? 60%. More than 60% are in more than one time zone. If you look around the room, how many of you have a colleague who is in another time zone? Just let's have a look. Yes, you see 60% or 70%. Okay. Now, I written another book during COVID. I didn't travel so much on conferences. And first one was about business. This is more about uniting global talents also to tackle the toughest challenges, like climate change that we heard today from SAP and so on. Now, another spoiler. Google wanted to find out what the best global teams have in common. And they started a project called Google Project Aristotle. And they wanted to find out what is the one characteristic that their best performing teams have in common. They researched. At some point, they found that their best teams, when they have a meeting, they have an equal share of talking. So at some point in time, the introverts will shut up by themselves, or the extroverts will shut up by themselves. The introverts will gain and speak up. So they end up with like equal share of talking. It was quite a discovery for them. But it was not 100%, it was 90+% applied to this rule, and they continued to research. And in the end, they found it. What do you think? Just what's your first thing? What is this characteristic that all best teams have in common? In this case, virtual global teams. Anyone? Trust. Very good, very good. So for the benefit of time, I wouldn't go further. They call it, and trust is the key ingredient, psychological safety, which means that people in the team feel safe enough to take risks. Not being afraid that if they fail, they will be laughed at, or they'll be fired, they'll have negative consequences for their career. They feel safe enough to take risks. And secondly, they feel safe enough to show vulnerability in front of each other. Not just their perfect side, as sometimes we do in social media, they show their vulnerabilities. They show their weaknesses, they ask for help and so on. So psychological safety. And then comes number 2, dependability, relying on each other and so on. Clarity of role and structure. Now, how do you feel in your team? It's more a bit of a workshop question. Let's go into the 10 big rocks, the methods of virtual power teams. I will cover some of them in more details, some of them in less. Now, in poorly led teams, like in the Atom, some team members get lost in space. And that drives the performance down. So I ask myself the question, how can we retain the gravity so they feel really connected to the nucleus and improve performance even exponentially? And those teams that manage to do that, I call virtual power teams. And let's start building them now with the 10 big rocks. By the way, I'm a father of 5 girls. 1 wife, 1 marriage, 5 girls. Apparently, it's the only thing I can. I've tried long and hard enough. But 2 of them are now in the USA. The rest lived in Hamburg, in our family house. So next book project will be cracking the code of the virtual power family. Now, I do this little intro because every time I'm appointed as a manager of a new team or now I'm as a coach, I try to go deep in the personality of the people. So I invite people to present themselves with their lifeline or life journey. And here are the moments of excellence, moments that you are most proud of, but also the lowlights, moments that you struggled but nevertheless managed to overcome. And if you invite people to present themselves from this perspective, you will be amazed. Within 5 to 10 minutes per person, you will find out what makes the heart of each and every one singing. It's really very powerful. And as a smart manager, you may ask those questions during the recruitment, but in this way, everyone on the team finds out about everyone else, what makes their heart sing. So you see, as we said, psychological safety. You start building trust, you start building commonality, and this translates later on in performance. I also work with pictures. This is Oscar, lives in Madrid and weighs 9 kilos, so a real monster. I ask people to come up with a picture that they either find funny or identify with it. And again, within 30 seconds, just by the picture they pick and the way they present it, it opens the window to the soul of your people. And working with scaling startups, they have no budget to get together. We do this online, a lot of gravity. You start building the lifeline, the picture, and the third one that we do is so-called flash intro. 4 simple questions. I would have loved to do it now in 3 minutes, but the time is very limited. Siblings, brothers and sisters, hobby as a child, what you're most proud of, and then what else should others know about you. Try this one with a friend, try with your colleagues. Again, you'll be amazed by the level of depth you get. First 2 questions, very easy. You don't have to think what to answer. Second 2 questions, you need to decide what do you share. So you're forced to show vulnerability, and this is exactly what Google discovered that builds trust. Because we have our Bulgarian saying, to trust someone, you need to eat 2 kilos of salt, sort of. So many years together so you can trust him. But the speedway for building trust is opening up and showing vulnerability. And I would only recommend to try it out. You will see with completely uncommon and unknown people, if we do it for 2 minutes, you will find out commonalities and start feeling trust. Trust, by the way, which is essential ingredient, as here someone mentioned of the psychological safety, is component of 2 things. Personality. Will he or she do it? Can I trust him? Will he or she do it? And for this, you need to know a little bit more the personality. And that's why we do these formats even online. And then, can he or she do it, if he has the skills and the competence? And this is where the second big rock, the strength matrix, come in. But the combination of 2 gives you the trust to your team members. And this is the fundament for your success as a team. By the way, the slides that I will share, they have some question for self-coaching. You could use it for yourself or for your team. The second big rock is strengths matrix. I'm a big fan of strengths-orientated management, which means strengthening the strengths instead of developing the weaknesses. It's not mine. Gallup International came up with Strengths Finder 2.0. How many of you have come across? Not so many. So I made it simple. When we do the workshops, I ask people to list their strengths. And for those of them who come with a list of 100 strengths, I explain that this is not a strengths competition. We will use it for additional roles and responsibilities and say, ooh, but why additional? We are already 150% overutilized. But for those of them who struggle to list a single strength, there is a script. Simple script, you do it in pairs. One is a coach asking the question, the other answer. What is easy and fun to do in your job? What is your biggest success in life, not just in work? What are people coming to you and asking you for help? If you ask, who is your best friend? Like Christo. If you ask Christo, what is your biggest strength? What would he say? And then, in the end, you ask, from everything you told me, what is your biggest strength? Again, you will be amazed. And then you as a coach can say, I think from everything I've heard, your biggest strength is this. So everyone will end up with two strengths. What is the internal perspective? What do you think of yourself? And again, this question will give you to come up with something that you probably will be surprised. And then how others perceive you, the external perspective. And we put on top, what is your avatar, a question, and we put it in this strength matrix with avatar like celebrities, movie characters, whatever. Some people go for animals like elephants or diamond and so on. And when people present themselves with their strengths, as I said, new feeling emerges. Everyone feels special because everyone is a star and brings a particular skill set to the team. And then when they see the rest of the talents, say we can achieve any goal that we set to ourselves. And the more, that's the trick in teams, the more you work in your strength area, the more joy you feel. How many of you have come across the flow state? Flow state? If you're fully focused, so that's yes. If you work in your strength area, you fall in flow. You're fully focused, this is the area of top performance, and you feel joy. And if you know the strengths of the others, and you have psychological safety, if something is not your strength, instead of struggling and frustrating, you would ask for help, the people that have the strengths, and then 1 + 1 + 1 becomes much more than 3. Just one simple story. I have a client in New York who runs MOOCs. MOOC stands for Massive Open Online Course. And he's gathering 35,000 students, and he's teaching modern architecture. So they're building resilient schools for the Philippines. When the tsunami in the Philippines destroyed the infrastructure, the government decided to build the schools in such a resilient way, so they will be, in normal case, there will be schools, but in case of natural disaster, they will provide shelter to the people. And 6 weeks, he recorded everything in videos. Each week gives some new instructions, they build a school. But his problem was, week 5 comes, people drop out. Learned enough for free, just dropping out. Why for free? They were paying in the end when they have a successful project, pay for the certificate and get it. They didn't care for the certificate so much. He tried to get the money up front, only 2,000 subscribed. So we get together with his team and agreed to divide them in groups of 5. Not us, it's a mammoth task. Self-organized, get together in a group of 5, based on proximity, time zone, whatever principle. And then, in these groups of 5, they presented themselves with a life journey. They discovered their strengths, and they were designing just one school, not 5 individuals, based on their strengths. And when the critical week 5 came, they couldn't let their teammates down. There was already so much gravity in the team, so they couldn't let their teammates down. In the end, 27,000 people stayed into the end, and with this simple measure, just letting people connect on a personal level, he had a nearly $500,000 revenue improvement. Now, interdependent goals. This is the nucleus. It's a very important big rock. I will explain the principle. Each organization has a vision, but sometimes it's difficult to translate it into a team on a team level. You have a choice either in the Martin Luther King style, I have a dream, to present it so vividly that everyone follows, or you can let the team work it out. And I've streamlined the process for breaking down, defining the vision, and breaking down in the goals. And essentially, these are 3 steps. First, you discover the 3 hottest topics of the team. Regardless how smart are you as a manager, if you have a multiple location, time zones, and culture, you don't know. So it's a bottom-up process, free groups, silhouette, issues and opportunities, symbol of success. People vote in the end. You discover what are the three hottest topics of the team. Step number 2, we convert them into the SMART goals. SMART, the specific, measurable, and so on, but in a very rich script, so it makes it really tangible for them. And then we build for each of the SMART goals a roadmap. And then people pick from the roadmaps their goals. So the roadmaps are the nucleus, and people pick their goals and justify it by their strengths. So there is no delegation. People pick their goals, and they work in their strength area. And from kind of day one, ensure much bigger commitment, even from the distance. Now, let's move to the second part, the body. I'll give you a couple of home office tips. 2019, I was speaking on an event in Bali called Running Remote. So there were organizations and companies having, some of them 10,000 plus people, like Shopify, and not having an office. So they decided from day one to be fully remote. Their people can work wherever they like, and even whenever they like, as much asynchronous as possible. And they asked the question, what is the number one skill to lead remote workers? And we were voting with Slido, with the mobile phones, and the topics which get resonance were bigger and centered on the screen. And at some point in time, there was one word in the middle of the screen, the number one skill, according to this audience, to lead remote workers. What do you think? What is this skill as a leader to lead remote workers? Give me a few ideas. Empathy, big time. What else? Self-driven, yeah, you need self-motivators, self-starters, yes. So the word which was on the screen was over-communicate. May sound a bit negative and surprising. It has two aspects clarified. First of all, if you give a task remotely and you put it in an asynchronous channel, you don't see if the people not in agreement or they're puzzled. So give them not just the task, give them why we do what we do. Give them the goal that this task will achieve. Because otherwise they will start bugging you back on their peers and you will waste time. Invest a little bit to give them the bigger picture, the big why and the big what. And second aspect is make sure they understand what do you mean. Sometimes we give a task, when we see the result, has nothing to do with what we expected. Who is to blame? Me, the communication sender. So make sure, ask them to rephrase that they really understood. So these two aspects of our communication can, over time, spare you time and have a better result. The second tip, which I use in my family, is praise, praise, praise. I've tried with my girls with constructive criticism, using the best practices. I failed miserably. The only thing that works is praise, praise, praise. And similarly apply to virtual teams. What to praise, you may ask? If there is a result, if there's a deliverable, praise the result. If there is no result yet, but you see supportive behaviors, psychological safety, praise the behavior. If there is neither result nor behavior, look harder. There is always something to praise, but be authentic. And then there are many others, like take regular breaks. I take like every 25 minutes if I'm not on stage, Alexa, set an alarm. Take regular breaks. You will see. You'll be more productive in the end. And particularly if you're like in a multiple time zones, as we saw in the room, agree on a single channel for urgent communication and agree on the response time. Don't use email for urgent. Let the team decide. Now, forums and agenda. I will just mention here that how many of you use like Scrum or any of the agile methodologies? Quite a few. So in your regular communication, make sure you have a meeting with a core team, core project team, or core leadership team, the core members, the manager and his reports. And whatever your periodic is, like weekly or daily, start with a personal update. Start with a highlight from each one, share within 2 minutes, what is my highlight since we last met? You will see, particularly if it's fully hybrid or remote context, this is the spice of the meeting. People share what's my record in half marathon, and I've seen many sporty people here. I was positively surprised. Or how it tastes, red wine from Chile, Reserve 96. So very personal, 2 minutes, set the tone. If this is like your weekly team meeting, the core team, like monthly, but it's key that the team decide, not the manager, I invite a bit of a bigger body. It could be, if you like, multiple hierarchy, their direct reports. So the leadership team is the manager and his direct reports, and here is the extended leadership team. Or if it's like a smaller team, you could invite key partners and suppliers, or different stakeholders, key interfaces within the organization. It's very important. Once you set the goals, the interdependent goals, the nucleus, and everyone is having a goal, here everyone reports, where am I with my strategic goal? So, and you open it for key interfaces to also find out. That will ensure from a virtual power team center, you go and spread the message and your mission within the organization. VR is coming big time. Recently, I had a VR keynote in a hotel room, and we were on the Necker Island, so this immersive thing is coming and will make our meeting probably a bit more exciting. And then a little bit on the psychological safety in hybrid teams. Do you know how many people want to come back to the office the old way? What's the percentage? Yes? Yeah, you want to, okay. Let's ask the room. How many want to go back 5 days a week? Okay. 20%, yes. So global research says 25. 70%, like in this audience, 75 prefer to work remotely, if possible, even if they have a pay cut. But 2/3, 66, want to have a meaningful interaction with their colleagues. And you will see how the fully remote companies do it. So a few ideas how to set the psychological safety if some people work remote. As a manager, call the team members and get their needs. You know, it was easy to distinguish work and non-work in the past. Now, if you work from home, you have different needs, different constraints. Young kids, all the aging parents, and so on. Get the needs of everyone. Then you can put the needs of the team. Maybe you need a really synchronous time where everybody is online. Lead the way, share your constraint first. You don't expect that everybody will open up and share, and you in the end don't share anything. Start, share your constraints, your vulnerabilities. That's how we build trust. You wouldn't fix it with one meeting. Make it a recurring format, and make sure if people share, this is not penalized. It's stay confidential. Share the quick wins. If somebody share a constraint, don't have a room for like 3 hours budget review, maybe co-working space and so on. If there are solutions to their problem, share. That would make people that it's not just a lip service, we mean it. And then very important, be a watchdog. Watch the language. Don't, we miss you, come to the office, why don't you come? Doesn't help, just pressure. We miss your ideas, we miss your empathy, but we understand your constraints. How can we help? This how can we help? How can I help as a leader? This is the key question. And again, micromanagement is not an option in virtual teams. You cannot control, it's counterproductive. The name of the game is empowerment. So put the goals, put the roadmaps, let the people choose. So you set the nucleus as a team, people choose their individual goals, and then set them free. On the how, let them decide, within some budgetary and time constraints. And then if you made a mistake, because we live in an agile world, be the first one as a leader, hey, I made a mistake. The first one as soon as possible. Celebrate the mistakes. This is how we learn. Because of this, this, and that. Because that's the learning. Maybe you made the wrong assumption. You don't do it on purpose. In this way, you enable others also, if they do a mistake, to share. A few ideas from Google. They have their hybrid work. They have this team pods. Everything is on wheels. You could build as big as you need space with this smart camera. Everything on wheels. You have this privacy robot. So this is a wall which is inflating. If you need privacy, you click a button. It gives you visual privacy and audio privacy. You finish, click, this robot wall disappears. And then you could just scan, and if you need a standing desk, this will adjust to your preferences. Now let me share a few tips of the companies that work fully remote, that don't have an office and still deliver best results. Like Airbnb, they had their best results in the last 2 years. Even that the tourist industry was negatively impacted by COVID, working fully remote, they had best years. And now they go remote first policy. 3 principles: full transparency, very brief. Each employee have the information of the CEO. The P&L, if you need to lay off people, what are the arguments? Full transparency. Second, the leaders, this organization happened to be flatter. So the leaders master the video. They send the messages why we do on the why 10 minutes video, and they track if people watch or not. And then they do retreats. If they don't have the office, twice a year they meet, all hands, build a project roadmap. There is a lot of know-how how to leverage on these events. As a mathematician, cannot leave you without one formula, and this is virtual power teams. P is personality. Let people present themselves as human beings. V is vision, the nucleus. Make sure the nucleus is defined bottom up. I is intimacy. Let them connect as human beings, not just an expert. And S is self or ego. The less, the better. If we define the team, in some corporations, some managers have hidden agenda, which facilitates their career, their bonus scheme. If we have the goal set up as a team, and everyone picks his individual goal, and a lot of praise, you don't have to develop your hidden agenda. So just mention this story. That was the €1 billion project. That was a client, global fast-moving consumer good companies, and they had Chinese traders buying their goods in 6 countries: Australia, UK, France, and putting them on Alibaba. And the overall volume was €1 billion. And then the vice president of business development said, okay, let's be smart, ask the general managers in these 6 countries, get together, accumulate the volume, so the procurement can do a deal with Alibaba. 1 year passed, nothing happened. Very busy people, big egos involved, so he said, okay, let's set up a project and build a powerful virtual team, very diverse. So 10 people, the 6 GMs, supply chain, finance director, HR. We were in Amsterdam for 1 day, and we defined the culture on 3 scales. First was the leadership scale, distinguishing between hierarchical culture, and where you have big distance between boss and employee, you ask for permission, wait for approval, and egalitarian. You're expected to be proactive, to challenge your boss. And different countries, they fall on the scale in a different, it will be interesting whether you see Bulgaria, but like China, Russia, Japan, they're very hierarchical, Scandinavian egalitarian. So ask them to put their optimal position on the scale. And their aha moment was, they say, okay, we will be more egalitarian, where is the first star, until we reach project mandate, high-level project definition. And then we'll be more hierarchical. Now, this is the brief, give it to the Chinese, now go on and deliver. Similarly was the decision scale, top-down versus consensus, and then disagreeing or conflict scale. And then everyone committed based on this, what can I do in order to enable this culture? And what our leader can do in order to enable it. So culture is a soft thing. You cannot impose it, but if people choose it themselves, the team in a well-moderated format, and they make a commitment, they hold each other peer accountable. So this is the only way, from my perspective, to introduce culture. Let them choose it and hold each other peer accountable. So we had, in the end, 0.1% profitability, which reducing the project cost was 80 million. So winning spirit, I will send you a video on the winning spirit. This is the global services project. It's a very nice story. I love it, but happy to share a video with you. We went to Tenerife, Canary Islands. We said, if we finish this 2 years project, 3 months earlier, we'll go all 30 people to Tenerife, Canary Islands. We convinced the project board because the people cost was €1 million project, 1 million per annum. If we finish 3 months earlier, we save 250, and with 50 we go. We had this visual reporting, which is key, like an island, and the palm tree and the parachuters, 20 parachuters for each of the country. And visual in virtual is key. If you know where we are towards our goal at any moment in time, if you know who needs help, who can help, who already landed on the island, you create a winning spirit. People go extra mile. So we had a top customer feedback, we saved 200,000 net, and we had a great party. Now, concluding, again, questions for you. To do all 10 big rocks in the detail, usually we do a tailored workshop, 2 days, when we tune it for your organization, your reality. And there is also, because time is very pressured nowadays, a digital masterclass where all these 10 big rocks, 6-hour videos, 20 videos, you can digest in your own convenience when you have the time. Before I go to the universe, and I see we have a few seconds, if you scan this, you can get the Virtual Power Team book. It's already 5 years old, so now I'm happy to share with the world. Let's go back to the universe just for a moment. We started with a space journey. Let's go to the universe just for one kind of minute. Do you know that in the universe only 10% is material? 10% are planets and stars. 20% is like nothing, like black holes or phenomena the scientists still cannot explain. And 70%, the major part, is invisible energy, like the gravity that holds the universe the way we know it. In a virtual team, it's quite similar. 10% are the team members and the infrastructure. 20% are undeveloped yet potentials. And 70%, the major part, are the relationships, the trust, the gravity that holds the universe together. So the art to lead virtual teams is to focus on the 70%. And I'm sure you will be amazed by the wonderful fruits to come. So let me conclude with one sentence which has guided me through the years, and it goes like this. If you dream alone, this is just a dream. If we people dream together, this is the beginning of a new reality. Thank you so much.
We can do one question. Who would like to ask a question? Come on, don't be shy. Okay, I'll ask a question. What's your biggest strength, and how did you figure out that this is your biggest strength?
My biggest strength?
Yeah.
My biggest strength, I think, is because I was IT manager. I hope I'm not kind of overestimating myself, but it's inspiring people. If I'm inspired about something, I can transfer this energy and passion to the others. And I changed my job 8 years ago, and I never worked again. So I think that's my biggest strength.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.